Let's look at using Metasploit to actually compromise a computer. Now, what I'm going to do here is, and you can't see my start menu, this is the way I've got the screen capture set up, but I've got a shortcut here to the VPN connection. So I'm going to connect first to the VPN. I don't know why that popped up. So I've connected to the VPN. Now I'm going to open two sessions using remote desktop. Now the first one, this is going to be the attacking machine, and I'm just going to use 192, 168, 157, 119. I've assigned each of you a particular one. This is 2003 server in the range of 111 through 119. So that's going to be our attacking machine. And I'm going to log on as administrator. And that's capital PASS 123. Now what I'm connecting to here is actually a virtual machine. We're connecting directly to the virtual machine because we can do everything we want to do by connecting directly to it. And you'll see here, again, you can't see my start menu, but I'm going to click on start here. And what I want to run here is under all programs, Metasploit 3. There's various ways you can run this. Let's use the Metasploit 3 GUI. Seems to work very well. Takes a little while to load. Now again, remember, this is going to be the attacking machine. So I've got it set up. Now I'm going to minimize this temporarily. I'm going to go back and I'm going to run, or going to open another remote desktop connection. This time I'm going to connect to the target machine, and I'll be sending you this information. And if memory serves me well, I can use 106. Again, you will have this information sent to you. And I created a user account called test account on 106 for my purposes. Now, in this case, I've connected directly to a real machine. 192, 168, 157, 106 is a real server in my lab, and we have connected to the host operating system. And each of you will be assigned a server to use. You'll be sent the account information. And when you connect, what you want to do is there's a VMware workstation icon on the desktop. Double click on it, and it will open up VMware, and you get the tip of the day, and you can read through some of these. They're kind of interesting, good things to know. I'll click on close. What you will find here is a Windows 2003 server set up for you, and it's suspended. You can see right here the state is suspended, and you can click either here to wake it up, it says start, or you can click the little green arrow triangle icon up here. You get a message here about background snapshots are enabled. Now we're going to use these. I think you'll find this is pretty neat. Just go on and say OK. It's just telling you that we can use background snapshots. Notice it doesn't take very long for this virtual machine to wake up. Now, let's review here. In my case, 192, 168, 157, 106 is a real machine. Well, it's the host operating system on a real machine. What you see in the window here is a 2000 server virtual machine. Now, in this case, we're connected to the host operating system and running the virtual machine. In this window. In our other situation, the attacking machine, we're connecting directly to this virtual machine that's running. It was already running. So, just want to review what's going on here. It might take a few minutes for you to really get a grip on what's going on. Now, since we're dealing with the virtual machine in the window here, a couple of things we can do. Number one, if we click in the window, click the mouse in the window, we're going to get probably get a message about the custom pointer. Just say OK, click on OK, and hopefully it'll go away eventually. If it doesn't, let's try Control-Alt-Enter. I think it's kind of frozen temporarily here. Oh, one thing that's could be messing with us here is if you look down at the bottom in this corner, it really hasn't completely restored the virtual machine state yet. It acts like it's kind of hung up, which is unfortunate. Oh, here it comes. It's going to count on it for us to 100%. Don't worry about the little message here that our version of VMware Tools is out of date. For our purposes, it's going to be fine. Click in the window and then hold down the Control key, the Alt key, and press Enter. This is going to take this full screen. Now, what you see here is this is the virtual 2003 server. It's just being run full screen. And again, you can't see the Start menu, but if you click on the Start button, you'll be told here that yes, in fact, it is a Windows 2000 server. Now, everything that you're familiar with pretty much is still here. It's just sometimes in a different position. The first thing we need to do is go up to Programs here and go to Accessories and then go up to the Command Prompt. And there's the only reason we're doing this is we need to know the IP number of this virtual machine. This virtual machine automatically obtained its IP number and other configuration information from a DHCP server. So you're going to have to check to see what the IP number is of your target machine. And to do this, you open up Command Prompt, type ipconfig space /all. Hopefully you all know this already. Press Enter. And notice here my IP number, or the IP number of my target machine, is 192.168.157.72. Now, make a little note of that. Yours will undoubtedly be different. You're going to need to know this. So, grab a little piece of paper here and make a little note of this. So I'm going to be shooting at 192, 168, 157, 72 is going to be the target of my attack. Now, I don't need to do anything else right now to this target machine. I can just leave it running here. I can go up to the top here and click the little minimize button. And now what I'm going to do is, remember now, I've left the target machine running. It's up and running. It has an IP number. Now I'm going to click the button for my attacking machine. Remember a while ago we opened up the Metasploit GUI, and here we are. Now, the GUI is new for version 3. It's really not that hard to figure out what's going on here. Here's we click this little plus sign right here, we're going to get a list of where we're going to get the folders for all the possible exploits that come automatically with the installation of Metasploit. So I'm going to go all the way down here to the one that says Windows, and I'm going to open it up again. So we get more folders, and we can look through here. For example, Backup Exec, that's an application. Bright Store is an application. Browser, these are probably all Internet Explorer vulnerabilities, and we can open them up. Oh, there's one for Instant Messenger. Yeah, there's a couple of Internet Explorer. So these are all various, there's several Internet Explorers. These are all known vulnerabilities that the developers of this Metasploit framework have written exploits for to take advantage of these known vulnerabilities. So we're going to pick out one here, and I'm going to go on down to the next item here, the DCE RPC. RPC's remote procedure call. DCE is the DCOM endpoint, I think is what it stands for. And let's just pick the first one here, the Microsoft 03, that's the year, _ 26. It was the 26th security bulletin released by Microsoft in the year 2003. And if you're sitting there thinking, wow, this is an old one, well, yeah, it is, but for our purposes, now remember, we're going to be shooting at a 2000 server, although this one will actually work against other operating systems you can see right down here at the bottom. So on an unpatched machine, this is still a good exploit. So let's look at there at the bottom here. It says this module exploits a Stack Overflow in the RPC, that's the remote procedure call SS service. This vulnerability was originally found by the last stage of Delirium, that's the LSD research group, and it's been widely exploited ever since. This is one of the more famous exploits. This module can exploit the English versions of Windows NT 4.0, Service Packs 3 through 6A, Windows 2000, which is what we're shooting at, Windows XP, which you think is a modern operating system, Windows 2003 Server, all in one request. So this brings up an interesting point about Microsoft's Windows family of operating systems. There is code in, for example, Windows 2003 or XP that goes all the way back to Windows NT 4.0. So in some cases, these exploits have existed for years, and they exist all through the line, all through the family. So this is actually a pretty scary concept, actually. This exploit module was written by HDM, which is H.D. Moore is the guy's name, who was one of the main people that developed Metasploit. And Spoon M, I'm not sure who that is. And somebody named goes by the nickname of Kaz. So anyway, we have selected our exploit here. Now, point at it and do a right mouse click and click on Execute. So now we're going to go through some configuration here for the Microsoft RPC DCOM interface overflow. Remember this is a buffer overflow. So I'm going to click the drop down list here. Sometimes there's options of different operating systems here. In this case, this particular exploit works on all these. So we're good. Click on forward. And it takes a moment for it to call up the next thing that you need to deal with. Just be calm. Now, at this point, we're going to select the payload. Now, the payload is what's going to be sent as part of the attack with the exploit. And once the exploit does its magic, the payload will come into play. Now, there's a drop-down list here, and there's a lot of these. Now, we're going to be much happier here, I think, if we select something that's has Windows as part of the title. Now, by the way, there are Metasploit is smart enough to only show you the payloads that will work with the particular exploit that you are using. So that's why we didn't see a longer list, because Metasploit knows which exploit we picked out, and these are the payloads that will actually work with our exploit. So the one I've selected to start out with here, and we'll try some other ones here, is Windows/add user. You get a little description here. This will create a new user and add them to the local administrators group. Now think about this. It's going to add a new user account and put that in the local administrators group on the target machine. And where it's going to do this without us ever touching the target machine. So this is pretty scary stuff. So for our first use of Metasploit, let's pick out Windows/add user. Click on forward. Now, I'm going to pull this up a little bit here. Depending on the exploit and the payload that you have selected, you're going to have to configure some things here. This is one of the more straightforward exploit payload combinations, where we have to tell it the remote host. This is the target address. So this is why we had to look up a while ago the IP number of the target machine. And that's my target. Don't bother the target port. This is the DCEM port. Don't have to worry about any of these things. Metasploit here is by default the username that's going to be created. If you're actually going to use this against a real target, which by the way could be illegal, you probably want to change Metasploit to something else. In our case, we'll leave it alone, and I'm going to put a password in. You can put whatever password you want in. You can look at the advanced, but there's nothing in here we need to worry about for this particular one. Some of these are if you're setting up a local port to receive a connection back, and we're not doing that, so we're good. Again, this is one of the more simple setups we could use. Click on forward. So now we get a little review here of what we're going to do. Now, before we pull the trigger on this, let's minimize this and go back to our target. Now on the target, and I want to show you, let's see here, if you go to control panel, open this up, and then go to administrative tools, and then go to computer management, and then go to local users and groups, and click on users. These are the current users on this virtual 2000 server. So there they are. Just want to prove to you that there's nothing there already. So I'm going to minimize this. Go back to your attacking machine. I think I clicked the wrong one. Sometimes it's a little bit tricky to get through to make sure you get the right one. So target machine is set up. It's listening. I've got my exploit selected. I've got the payload selected, and I'm going to the payload's going to add a user to the target machine. I've got my remote host configured, so I'm ready to go. So click on apply. Okay, that's pretty much all there was to it. Let's minimize this. Go back to the target machine, and in computer management here, what you're going to do is refresh it. So come down to refresh, and look what happened. There is a new user account on the target machine. Double click on it. Check member of. Notice it is also a member of the local administrators group. So let's think about what we did here. We picked an exploit in Metasploit. Now, by the way, let me point out something to you here. We didn't have to have Metasploit to do this. There's this exploit is well-known exploit. There's code out there on the internet, probably several different, slightly different versions of code that will exploit this known vulnerability. We're using Metasploit because it just makes it so much easier to do. And we can debate the various pluses and minuses of a tool like Metasploit, but just want you to keep in mind we didn't have to use Metasploit to do this, but it certainly made it a whole lot easier for us in this class. So using Metasploit, we picked out an exploit that had been written to take advantage of or exploit a known vulnerability, a discovered vulnerability in this case Windows Server 2000. We also in Metasploit picked out the payload that we wanted to attach to the exploit code, and the payload that we picked out the first time is the adds a user and then puts that user in the local administrators group. So after we did this, basically all we needed was the IP number of the vulnerable host, the target machine, and you tell Metasploit to do its magic, and it was just almost instantaneous. The exploit code was sent across the network, and we'll actually look at that here in a moment and see if we can tell anything about it. Sent across the network, and our target machine was exploited. The payload was executed, user was created, put in the local administrators group, and it's just it's pretty much that easy. Once a vulnerability is discovered and the exploit code is written, these things are they're out there on the internet. The code is, the payloads are. Metasploit just kind of made it really, really easy to put all these things together. So what you saw here in this little video was an example of a computer being compromised across the network. So let me show you some other things we can do in our test environment here, and we'll worry later what you could really do now that we have a user account that's part of the administrators group on the computer we attacked. Now remember, this is a virtual machine running in a window on the host, and if I do Control Alt and Enter again, it puts it back into the window. Now let me show you how this snapshot thing works. This is pretty cool. If you go up to the VM menu item and down to snapshot. Now remember, I took a snapshot for you already, and I've been using this particular virtual machine for I don't know, a couple of years probably. So if you go down to this one here marked number 1 before exploit 2, that was the last snapshot I made, and then click on that and then click on yes. What it's going to do here, it's going to roll back this processor, well, excuse me, this virtual machine. We just got a little message about a processor there. To its previous state. So now if I do Control Alt and Enter, and I'll write this down. And again, go to Start. Settings, Control Panel, Administrative Tools, and then Computer Management. Local users and groups. Finally, users. Notice the Metasploit account is gone now. So by using the snapshot feature, I have rolled back, and I just press Control Alt and Enter again to bring it back to window mode. I've used the snapshot feature to roll back to the machine state before I ran the exploit. So this basically means that in our test environment here, we can try as many different exploits and payload combinations as we want. And every time, after every one, we just roll the machine, the target machine, back to where it was. So the snapshot feature in our lab environment here is a really interesting, really cool thing. Now let's see what else we can do. And I'm going to do Control Alt and Enter again here to go full screen with this. Now I'm going to go back over to the Start button. And I'm just kind of curious what other programs are on here. Oh, good. If you go to Start Programs and come on down here to the bottom, there's something called Wireshark. And we've used Wireshark before. It's a packet sniffer. So I'm going to set up a capture. Go down to Options. Make sure we pick the right interface here. And since this is a virtual machine, it's going to be the VMware accelerated AMD, whatever. Interesting. This says the IP number is 76. Oh, I know what happened. When I reverted to the previous snapshot, the IP number it was using before was 76. I noticed that when I checked the IP number a few moments ago. So if you get something about a duplicate IP number exists on the network, you may have to do an IP config /release and then a renew. That might be a little bit of an issue since we're using the snapshot. It's going to go back to a previous, whatever its previous IP number is. So just remember, in this case, we've got to change our target to 76. Hopefully this won't cause us too big an issue. So I'm going to go on and click on Start here. Well, I'm going to get ready to start. Everything's ready. I'm going to go back over and to my target, or excuse me, my attacking machine. And it's the other one. Alright, and basically what I'm going to do is I'm going to go through this setup again, use the same exploit. And I'm going to use the same payload. And what I'm going to do is this time I want to see what the packets look like. And we probably won't be able to tell anything particular about them, although we might be able to pick out the password. We'll see. So again, 192, 168, 157, 76. As I'm thinking about this, probably the best thing for you guys to do, and I'll show you how to do this here in a moment, is create your own snapshot point. That should get us around the problem of the IP number of the target changing. So I'll show you how to do this, Mom. It's real simple. I want to do pass 1, 2, 3 for the password and forward. Now this is ready to go. Now I'm going to switch back over and start the capture. Okay. We're going to get a lot of things here we don't really want. And I'm going to go back over here and trigger the attack. Go back over here and stop the capture. A lot of traffic on the network today. And most of this traffic you see right here is the remote desktop traffic, and you can actually filter that out if you really want to. Let's look here and see what we've got. So let's think about this. 119 was the attacking machine, I believe. So let's scroll back up through here and see if we can see some packets that were actually involved. You can always click on source and sort. Sometimes it's not easy to figure out which way they went, whether they're going ascending or descending. So I'm going to scroll down. I'm looking for 119 as the source because that's where the attack started from. 112. Let me check my IP numbers. I may be confused. Yeah, 119 was the attacker. I guess the first thing we should do is make sure that the attack actually was successful. I've got computer management here already open. Let's do a refresh. That's why we can't find it, because it didn't work that time. Suspicion we have a problem with our IP number. Let me just check it real quick. IP config all 76. Check here the destination, see if we see anything coming 76. I don't see anything coming to 76. Let's go back and set our attack back up here. I must have did something wrong. Execute. Forward. And it may have been I didn't pick the right payload. Yeah, it is. Get in a hurry. Alright, 76. Password. Pull this up a little bit here. Forward. Now before I click on apply, I'm going to go back and start my capture again. Now, we don't have to use Wireshark here. I'm just hoping to show you what the packets really look like. Let's see if we can actually do a capture filter here. Remote desktop uses port TCP 3389. We can, if I get the syntax right here, we can filter this out. And if I don't get the syntax right, it'll fuss at me. Continue without saving. Yeah, I didn't like that. I can't remember right off how to make the... let's try again. We'll take our capture filter out. I need to look it up. It's close to that. Let's try that. Yeah, that worked. I just need to put port in. Alright. Minimize this. Go back to the attacker machine. Trigger the attack. Go back to the target machine, see if we caught anything. Yeah, here we go. We're good. I must have picked out the wrong payload last time. I'm going to go ahead and stop this because it's already there. Scroll up a little bit here. Here's the ARP request from the attacker looking for the MAC address of the victim. This is the ARP reply. This is the first packet of the attack, and since this is TCP, we have to do the three-way handshake. So this is the send packet, this is the send act packet, this is the final act packet. So now our connection is established. Here's where the attack actually starts. We're trying to do a DCOM endpoint RPC bind, and if you notice here, let's see, the destination port is 135. We saw that a while ago. By the way, in the real world, what you would do is you would filter incoming traffic to port 135 at your border, so somebody couldn't attack you this way across the somewhere out on the internet. So let's scroll on down here and see if we can look in the... I have no idea. These are all packets that have been they're in the proper format to communicate with the DCE endpoint. And what happens here is on this DCOM endpoint thing, when a computer is trying to use this RPC service, my understanding of it is it contacts the computer using port 135, and then there's a negotiation that goes on, and another port is established to actually be the real endpoint for the whatever transaction is going to happen. So that's what you see going on here. There's a negotiation going on. So this is still part of the attack. This was what's coming back to the attacking, from the target back to the attacking machine. So this is a segment of a reassembled PDU. I'm looking through here to see if there's something that that looks familiar, something we can pick out. So most of this, a lot of this is actually, there's a couple of things going on here. There's a negotiation going on using the proper format for this type of communications. And then at a certain point, there's going to be the actual attack is going to happen. And then, let's see, this is all coming back. Let's see what this looks like. So we've got a negotiation going on. We've got an attack in here, and we've also got the. It's probably all hidden in this, like this one right here. We've got the payload in here. Let's see if we can see some data in here and see what this really is. I'm going to move this up. So here's our data. If I was guessing, I would anticipate this is the attack itself, the attack code. I'm looking for the name of the account that's going to be made here and the password, which I suspicion you should probably be able to see clear text. Maybe not. I don't see it in that one. Let's see if there's any data. Anything in here that we can read? Nothing that jumps out at me. But anyway, you can look through here at your leisure. But look, this started the three-way handshake. And at this point, this is the FINAC and the final ACK. So, what do we got? 11 packets here. That's what it took to do the compromise. And just to prove to you that really the compromise, I want to open up computer management again and go to action, hit refresh. So there we are back again. Okay, we've the exploit and compromise and the payload were all successful. And again, I just ran Wireshark here to show you, some indication of what went across the wire. And apparently we've got 11 packets here, and if you really think about it, there's 3 of those that are the initial three-way handshake, and then there's a couple here that are the FINAC and the ACK to shut to terminate the connection. So you take those out, and you've got 6 packets here that were actually involved in the attack, including the payload. So, and this is just how easy it is. Of course, somebody had to find the vulnerability. They had to write the exploit code, and then once the code was proved, there were some modifications to put it in the proper form for Metasploit to use. That's fairly minimal. And then the payloads were developed, and now it's ready to go. Interesting, huh? So, Control-Alt-Enter takes us back to window mode here. let me do a little housekeeping here. I'm going to go on and close my Wireshark. Now, let's go back up here and go to VM and snapshot. Go back to before exploit 2 and restore. Let's restore it to before exploit 2. The little message you get there about the there's a little bit of difference in hardware. This was when this 2000 server was originally installed on a single processor machine. Now it's running on a quad core machine, so it fusses about that, but apparently it goes on and works. Notice down here at the bottom it tells you how it's coming with the restoration. It'll speed up here in a moment. So I think what we need to do to make sure we don't have any issues with the IP numbers is we should I'm going to do a restore here. And then I'm going to release my IP number and then renew it. And then I'm going to create another snapshot. And you should do the same thing. And this is just to make sure that I can't remember right off if every one of these virtual machines, these virtual 2003, or excuse me, virtual 2000 servers, is going to revert back to the IP number 192.168.157.76 every time. Well, let me show you how to do that. I'm going to go to, you don't have to go full screen. You just click on Start. And just say OK here. It's fussing about the mouse. Start. I need the command prompt box again. Accessories. Command prompt. There was a shorter way to get to administrator tools, by the way. IP config space slash then type release. Press enter. So we've given up our IP number. Now let's go get another one with IP config space slash renew. Now, in my case, I'm probably going to go back and get 76 again. If you've ever studied how the DHCP protocol works, the client machine can ask to get an IP number that it's used previously, and if that IP number hasn't been allocated to another machine, it'll give it to you. So when you do this on yours, you should get a different number than 76, because the DHCP server should remember that I've got this particular virtual machine has already got 76. We'll see how this works. So now that we've got a bright shiny new IP number, let's go up here and create our snapshot. It's real easy. Just go to VM, go down to snapshot, and then click on take snapshot, and it will ask you for a name. And put whatever name you want to on it. I mean, it's your virtual machine. And say OK. And answer that message. and it's actually saving the state here. It actually, what it does is your virtual machine is it's just a number of files on the hard disk. So when you take a snapshot, it just creates another file or two showing the particular configuration of your virtual machine at that time. So the more snapshots you take, the more hard disk space you use up, but we've got plenty of hard disk space, so you don't have to worry about that. So before you get started, you should make sure that you get a different IP number than the 76 that I'm using here. Of course, even that won't matter if I'm not online, nobody else is at the time. But I think we'll be better off if we do the release and renew, and then everybody takes their own snapshot. And then, see, now when I revert to the snapshot, it's going to go back to this IP number I just got, which hopefully in your case is going to be different. So we're almost finished. Now, what have we done? We have logged on to the VPN. We've opened up two different remote desktop sessions. We have one session to the attacking machine. It's going to be one of the servers that you've been using already. It's this 2003 server. Didn't have to be a 2003 server. It's just what we have kind of to work with in the lab. Our target machine, we're actually running it. It's also a virtual machine, but we're not connecting directly to it with remote desktop. We could, but well, actually we couldn't because Windows 2000 doesn't know anything about remote desktop, at least not directly. The big reason we are connecting to the host operating system and then running the virtual machine in the little window is here because we want to be able to use the snapshot feature. If we had connected directly to it, we couldn't use the snapshot feature. It'd be a one-shot thing. We would compromise the machine and that would be it. So we need to connect to the host operating system so we can run the virtual machine in the window, and we can revert to previous snapshots. And see, here's the one I just made. See, there's my new latest snapshot. So that's the reason we are connecting to the host operating system and then running the virtual machine in just in a window here. So we've got our target. We go back to the attacking machine, run Metasploit, pick out an exploit, pick out a payload, do the appropriate configuration. We had to find out what the IP number was of the target machine. Now, in the real world, if we were really attackers, we would do ping sweeps, and port scans, etc. The things we've been doing the last 2, 3, 4 weeks to discover targets. So we would use that information in our targeting in Metasploit. So once we get Metasploit properly configured, we just click on I forgot what the button was even called, apply or attack or whatever it is. A number of packets are then sent across the network, and notice, you may remember in Wireshark we looked at them, and there's not that many packets that are actually comprise this particular attack. I think there were 11 packets, and we could identify 5 of those as being the three-way handshake and the at the beginning of the session, and the fin and finac, or the finac and the fin at the end, to properly close the connection. So, and remember, we didn't have to run Wireshark. I just wanted to show you what was going on in the background. And it was that simple. Now, the payload we picked in this particular case just added a user and put that user in the local administrators group, and we'll ponder on what we could do with this in later. What else do we do? Well, we discovered a potential issue with the IP numbers. If you revert to previous snapshots, it might try to grab the same IP number again. So what I want you to do before you start is just open up a command prompt, do the IP config /release, and then turn right around and do IP config /renew. Get yourself a new IP number, then go up to VM and down to snapshot, and then take snapshot and give it whatever name you want here. So you'll be establishing your starting point with hopefully a different IP number than 192.168.157.76, and you want to make a note of that because that's going to be your target in Metasploit. So you set those up first, then you go back over to Metasploit and actually run your attack. Come back to the victim and verify that the attack was successful. Pretty interesting. Now, when you're finished here, and we're going to come back to this and use this quite often. These little two bars up here, if you click on that, what you'll actually do here is you'll suspend your machine. So now when you come back to it, you can click on start and it'll start right back up. You don't have to worry about waiting for it to boot up. So it's makes things a whole lot quicker. So I've suspended my machine. I'm going to go down here to start, and I'm going to log off. And this is the server that's running my virtual machine, my virtual target. So I'm logging off of that. And remember, we're still logged in directly here to the attacking machine. So we can just close Metasploit, come down to start, and log off here. So this will be the second of my two connections, remote desktop connections. And then don't forget to disconnect from the VPN. And now everything's back to where it started, and we'll I want you to go through this with the exploit that I used and the payload that I used, and verify that everything worked like you think it should. Use the snapshot feature both to create a snapshot and to revert to a previous snapshot. And then in succeeding exercises, we'll try some different exploits and see some of the different things that the attacker can actually do with once they've exploited the machine.